I'm Sydney. I live on Long Island, New York. I'm 17 and I'm a senior in high school. And I have many interests ranging from science research to track and field, drama club, rock climbing, and of course music. My experience with music started with the clarinet. That was my first and my main instrument, and I've been playing since 4th grade. That would make this my 9th year playing the clarinet. Throughout my school, I've been involved in many different music groups such as concert band, symphonic winds, jazz band, marching band, tri-am, chamber singers, and the school musical. I technically wrote my first composition in 7th grade. It was for a school project for a music class that I was taking. Basically, we had to write an 8-measure motif, but I decided that 8 measures wasn't enough for me, and I really wanted to write a full-out song. It ended up being about 80 measures. That was technically my first composition, but I didn't start getting really into it until high school. So I never really listened to much music in my house. So I think my influences probably come from movies or film scoring pieces or the band music that we play in school. My favorite composer is Gustav Holst. I think I have a very unique style of composition, and this may be because I started composing before I learned any of the rules of music theory. So a lot of times I could have been inadvertently following the rules, but most of the time this wasn't the case. I was just putting down on the page what sounded good. And this worked for me, but after learning music theory, I think it helped me improve my compositions a lot, or at least to understand what I was writing. So a piece I wrote a year and a half ago called Wishing for Winter, I feel really defines my style. I learned how much I like ornamentations, which I add into almost all of my pieces, as well as different variations of a melody to keep the piece interesting while bringing back familiar ideas that I really liked, but I didn't want to overuse. Most of all, something that all my pieces have in common is that I'm always trying to spread a positive attitude. Even if I'm not feeling the best when I'm writing a piece, I always feel good by the end when I'm finished and ready to publish it. I always want to spread hope and happiness, and I think that music is a really powerful tool to do this. A lot of times for my lyrical pieces, even if they don't start out super positive, by the bridge and then afterwards for the final chorus, it's rearranged to show a new mindset and to have a positive sound to it, and that's always my goal. I joined Flat in 2018. When my music teacher from 7th grade heard my song, he suggested that I get some sort of music notation software, and then somebody recommended Flat to me. It was really easy to get because it was free, and it's very easy to navigate and compose on. And I think my favorite feature on Flat is collaboration and how easy that is, whether it's collaborating with my friends from school or another composer I met on Flat. It was super easy to use, and I think I made a good decision. It's so hard to pick just one piece of music that I'm most proud of that I've created, but as of right now, I think it's probably December for band. So I wrote the original version of December for orchestra, and I wrote this in 2020, but I think where I got with it after rearranging it for band, my band teacher asked me if we could play it in symphonic winds. So my school band actually got to play my piece, and that was a really good experience, and I think December is probably the one I'm most proud of. My creative process is actually really different for each song that I create. I never really create two songs in the same way, so I don't have a set formula of how I write music. Sometimes I'll just be out on a run or a bike ride, and I'll come up with an idea that I'll write down immediately when I get home, but other times I sit in front of the computer ready to make a song with no ideas yet, and those ones come out just as good. For lyrical pieces, I've tried both ways. Sometimes I start with the lyrics, and sometimes I start with a chord progression or a melody, and sometimes I write them both at the same time. And it really depends on the song. I took a class at Berkeley over the summer. It was an online course in songwriting, so this is where I really learned how to use lyrics. And they told me that there's no such thing as artist's block. Sometimes it's helpful to just get the bad ideas out of your brain to make room for new ones that you like better. And this has really helped me a lot, because sometimes if I'm not feeling as creative, I'll still come up with a piece. Sometimes I'll be sitting in front of the computer for a while trying to think of something, then I go out on a workout, then when I come back I'll have a whole song created. So I think it really depends. After I finish a piece, I like to do a lot of editing to make sure it sounds exactly the way that I want it to sound. So a lot of times I'll finish a piece and I might not publish it until a month or two later, and sometimes I'll publish it that day. I could oftentimes be working on the same piece for several months, and then I leave it and just don't look at it for a little while, and then when I come back, I like it a lot better than when I first wrote it. And then of course there's other songs that are just the opposite, such as the last piece I wrote called What is Victory Without a Fight? I wrote this song in one day, which doesn't always happen, but it did end up sounding exactly the way I wanted it to sound. So I was ready to publish that one after just a few hours of work on it. Music is a universal language that anybody can understand. Somebody doesn't have to be a musician to get the same emotional response and same feelings from a piece of music. I think that this connection can help benefit society overall. Music can benefit the brain, and especially in the era of mental health, it can help a lot of people. Because music is processed in the amygdala, this is the same area of the brain that a lot of mental health disorders affects. And since music targets the same area of the brain, it can be used in therapy. And scientists have been working to create more musical pieces that are effective in therapy. And this can benefit society through connections and improvements in mental health. Even though music might not end up being my career, I definitely want to keep it in my life. I'm going to keep composing throughout my future. And in college, I do plan to major in something science related, but I would like to pursue a minor in music. A few years ago, my biggest dream in music was to hear one of my pieces played by a live band. And since I actually achieved this the past year, I think my new dream for the future is probably to hear one of my compositions in a show or a movie. Advice that I would give to new composers, or even more experienced composers, is not to let anybody try to change your style. You should always write something that you like, even if it's not typical or you haven't heard it before. If you like it, chances are your listeners will too. And while it's almost impossible to please everybody, you should always make sure that you're happy with the end result. You'll get more out of it, and you don't have to worry about what other people think. Another piece of advice that I could give, especially if you're looking to publish your music, is don't worry about the numbers. The amount of likes or followers somebody has doesn't determine how good or bad their music is, or who they are as a person. How they convey themselves through music and what they do on the outside does, and that's what should be more important. I found within my time composing is that you don't have to be famous to be heard. Every time I create a piece of music, and as soon as I'm done, I send it to my friends from school and my teachers to make more connections in real life. And I think that this should be more important than any number on a screen. Something that I would have liked to know, or at least have been reminded of a little bit more when I first started composing, is that there's no wrong way to compose a piece of music. Music is something that's meant to be creative, and there's really no such thing as a mistake. If something doesn't sound exactly the way that you want it the first try, you learn what you do like, and then that develops your style. Probably collaborations, and this started unexpectedly because a few years ago I was randomly added to one of those flat experiments where it was just a bunch of composers and we could all work together on the same piece. It never ended up getting published, but it was really fun to work on, and that inspired me to create more collaborations with different composers in the future. It's also really nice how many great people I've gotten to know from my time on Flat, and now I can talk to them over SoundCloud or email. And it was really nice to know that all these people have something in common with me, and Flat helped me get to know them a little bit better. I want to thank all of you for listening to me, and especially thank you to the Flat staff for being so supportive of your users. Thank you so much for selecting me as January's Composer of the Month. As somebody who's been using Flat for so long, it was really great to share my experience. And thank you so much. Until next time.